And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could be with us. And boy, do we have a great guest that's returning today in an appropriate month. March is recognized as National Reading Month as well as National Ebook Month. And our next guest has been able to give us much to read and also to be able to enjoy as well. We're excited to welcome back James Earl Hardy to our broadcast today. You guys know him from the bestseller B-Boy Blues. He actually has a new edition of that actually features the image from the movie as well. We have all of that in the carousel for you guys on the Amazon Live side. So as you guys are watching us on Amazon Live, you'll notice either here in this corner or down below, you will see the books and also the movie that we're talking about with James today. For those tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we welcome you guys to the broadcast as well. If you guys have any questions about anything that James and I are talking about, make sure you guys do put it in the comment section. We'll be glad to be able to bring those in as well. But James will also be catching us up on what's going up next for him this year, including a young adult novel as well. A lot for us to talk about with James. But James, welcome back to the broadcast, man.
Thank you so much. Round three.
Round three. I know, it's funny. You and I joked, and maybe it was I that said the joke. We've talked more this year, James, and we've talked in the decade that we've known each other. But it's an appropriate time because there's so many great things going on with you. We're going to talk about the young adult novel, everything else that's happening. So I want to talk to us about, and you and I kind of addressed this the first time you were on. I want to talk about able to appreciate it all because all of this began with the book that you were just holding up with me, B-Boy Blues. What has it been like for you to see how everything has kind of come from this one story and these characters?
Well, thank you once again for the opportunity to fellowship with you.
Yeah.
It's been a surreal journey. As I've said before, I never thought that there would be a B-Boy Blues. I never thought I could write a novel like B-Boy Blues. I thought somebody else would. And to see it grow into now a series and then the play and now the film and eventually the sequels, I still have to kind of pinch myself. But of course, I have that reminder every day because I watch the movie every day.
Do you really? You and I've never talked about that. So you watch it every day?
Every day.
What? Okay, so we got to talk about that. I didn't know. This is new to me, y'all. For those joining us in the, I didn't. James and I had not. I purposely don't script this show because and even though James and I have gone back and forth about it, some things we want to make sure we talk about. We don't. It's not something that we necessarily know everything about. So when you're able to do that, are you able to feel the pride of the accomplishment as you're watching it, James?
Well, yeah. But for me, it's more about the joy that I just get knowing that it, in fact, did finally happen. Because I was on this particular journey with the movie like 6-7 months after it was first published.
Wow.
First option agreement. So we're talking about a new century, a very new time. So, but even though the story takes place today, Pookie and Little Bit's love story is eternal. It really is.
Yeah. Now, a lot of attention has been happening around you in this book for quite some time. We should say the movie, of course, nominated for awards. The play that a lot of people, when you and I were first connecting online, I think in our AOL days, James, the play was at that point one of the big accomplishments. So I want to talk about that for a second because the movie, of course, I mean, great what you've been able to have done with that. And then, of course, the actors that bring the story to life, very powerful. Talk to us about seeing it on the stage. What was that like for you? Because you're also celebrating an anniversary there when it comes to the stage play. What was it like for you to see it go from the page to the stage?
Yeah, this is actually the 10th anniversary of the very first performance of B-Boy Blues, the play in New York. And that performance clearly holds a very special place in my heart because not only did I adapted it, But it was a really big accomplishment for me because I didn't think I would be able to. We're talking about transferring a 250,000 word novel into a 90-minute show. And it was challenging to do that because subplots had to be dropped and at least some characters could not be included.
Yeah.
But judging from the reactions of audiences across the country, yeah, I got it right. Thank God.
Yeah.
And in fact, just in time for its 10th anniversary, B-Boy Blues won for its official off-Broadway encore in December 2021. It just recently won 3 Broadway World Off-Broadway Awards, including Best New Play. So
Wow.
We are clearly heading in the direction of Broadway next.
Wow. Amazing.
So-
Amazing. You know, James, there's a couple of things I did want to talk to you about this time because this is your second time on with us with Amazon Live. I went back and watched that first interview we did, and anyone who's spent any time with you, I mean, you are the person that we see here on screen. This is who you are. Your personality comes through in your posts on social media, which is how you and I have stayed connected over this time, even though this year we are having more communication. What has helped you though? Do you think? And I asked you this before, but after watching the interview, I'm even more now intrigued by this, and I'm sure a lot of people ask you this too. What has helped you to stay so grounded? Because you have not been focused on fame, you haven't been focused on notoriety. You've just been focusing on the story, which is what we as creatives try to do or should do. I feel like, but a lot of people do things because they want to see their names in lights. They want to see, you know what I'm saying? They want the trappings of the stuff. What has helped you just to stay focused on the craft and telling the story?
Well, I guess a part of that is because writing for me is like breathing. It's very much a part of my DNA. If I couldn't do it, I don't know what I would do. So every time I create something new, it, especially in a different field, it gives me so much joy. And then to see the joy that it brings others truly reminds me that, yes, this is a gift, and I need to continue to nurture it and share it. So, and I've always put Pookie a little bit first. There was never any question once the novel was released that it was always bigger than me. That, yeah, it was created through me. I'm the vessel through which it came into the world, but I understand perfectly. I mean, back then it was, people wrote me letters and actually mailed them, and I received them. But now it's the DMs and the and email. It's kind of like, well, once again, thank you for telling our story, for telling my story, for allowing me to see myself and understand that there's nothing wrong with me. That it's okay for me to embrace all that I am. So, and I was there before B-Boy Blues. I was always searching for something that I could point to say, well, yeah, I'm okay, and I'm going to be okay. And so B-Boy Blues has served that purpose as a novel, as a series, as a play, and now as a film. And I couldn't be more happier about that. It's always been about the work and the places where it can go that I physically can't.
Yeah.
So
You talk quite a bit, and you've done it in the radio interview as well as here, James, about hearing from other people about how you help them to feel seen. But has their story also helped you to feel seen too?
Oh, definitely. The affirmation, I think that's the real gift for me over the years. It's that I created something that not only allows people to see themselves, but the freedom to be, the freedom to breathe. Because that, quite frankly, that's what pride should be. there should be no constraints. There should be no boxes. And I think that on many levels for many different people, and even those people who may not be Black or same gender loving, it's, you have a story that, well, has been told 1,000,000 times in 1,000,001 times before. Opposites attract and fall in love. It's just that we've never seen these kinds of opposites before. In print. And so, but of course it's the world that they live in too. And of course, our parents, our children, our besties, our exes, they all impact that world too. So I think that particularly going back to when both Elin and I we were touted as the only Negro homos in the literary universe, when we would oftentimes see heterosexual sisters on trains and buses reading our work. It's not so much crossover. It's just that people understand that there's a world to be discovered when you open up a book. No matter what the book is. So I'm just so happy that continues to happen internationally. So
right. You bring up Elin Harris, and he is someone like yourself, James, and you and I have never talked about this, and I've actually never talked about it before in an interview before, but I never interviewed Elin Harris. He and I had communicated back and forth about an interview with his last book, and of course it didn't materialize. I bring that up only for this point when it comes to yourself, is that when you mentioned about seeing individuals reading your books, it goes to what you and I talked about before. It is a universal story. And I think, and I love what you said about no boxes, James. So how does that feel to know that, just like we were talking about, you helped other people to feel seen, that you've written books that people just enjoy reading, regardless of, of how they see themselves, that you have written books that have, been able to reach people where they are in their lives.
Well, that's another wonderful gift for me. I can't say how many times I've heard someone say, I can't remember the last time I read a book. And as a writer, that's kind of shocking to me because I read all the time. But yeah, there are many people who, and probably when they stop going to school, it's they go through their adult life not actually reading anything, and then they pick up a book like B-Boy Blues, and they're off to the races. So I mean, I'm glad that B-Boy Blues, by extension the series, was the conduit that allowed them to see that reading doesn't and I think that probably has a lot to do with the fact that reading and in particular writing is often presented as a chore. It's not something that people think that they can get joy from, but my entire life, that's all I've gotten from both of them.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm glad that door has been open for so many other people to see.
Yeah. Such a great point, James. I want to say, for those who are just tuning in, I see you guys over there on YouTube. Appreciate you guys watching. You guys are watching Cyrus Represents on Amazon Live, but we are broadcasting on Facebook, on YouTube, and Twitter. So I appreciate you all being with us. If you have any questions or comments for James, would love to be able to share those. So feel free. The comment section is open. I'm watching that on my end. We're talking to James, as you see here, about his extraordinary journey. Of course, one of the biggest highlights we're talking about, but there's many he's celebrating this year. But one, of course, is the movie B-Boy Blues that I found out today he watches every day, which is, I mean, something to be proud of, to be able to see that. I know it has to feel good, but also celebrating the anniversary of the stage play that continues to get attention. And he has something new that he's celebrating as well, which is a young adult novel. We're going to talk about that. So let's talk about the books that have followed. So B-Boy Blues was the door. And then you kind of just created this world, with a house that's not a home, and there's and you've been able to tell again these characters' stories while also talking about the world that they're living in and the changing world they're living in. So talk to us about that. What has that been like for you to kind of create your own universe?
Well, because it's been kind of like a surprise for me, creating the series. Just like when you and other folks just pick up a new title, to find out what happens next. I don't know what's going to happen next until I actually sit down and write. So it's been a lot of surprises, a lot of shocks, a few horrific moments, ups and downs. That's life, both in our lives and, of course, the fictional world that Pookie and Little Bit live in. So, but it's been all gravy for me. I mean, it really has been. I can't imagine what my life would be now if Pookie and Little Bit hadn't entered it.
Wow. Amazing. So let me ask you this question. And it kind of, again, since I've watched the first interview, and I also do that to make sure I don't ask the same questions over again, James, but I do want to ask you this question. How much do world events impact the world you put your characters in?
Well, totally. With and specifically with the series, sometimes an issue is highlighted. For example, with the day Eazy died, it was HIV testing, and stigma. With Love the One You're With, it was, well, do men and monogamy mix? Which was a lot of fun to write. With the most recent title, Men of the House, which is actually a little brother man story. But of course, he's now known as Earl because in the story he's 15 years old. He's no longer 5. And how a heterosexual teen copes with being in a same gender loving headed family, because Mitchell and Raheem reunite when Earl is in his senior year of high school. So, and there are a lot of adjustments to make now that Raheem is back, his father is back, and he has to make room for him once again. So, it's life goes on, not just for us, but for the characters too. So when they're ready to tell a new story, I know that something that's happening in the world is going to impact them, or they're going to be discussing. And in fact, I'm hoping that they do want to tell another story, because I'd really love to know how they've come through the pandemic. So,
right.
And,
so
and they're both in 50s now, so they're mature men.
I was just going to say, James, you brought up Men of the House, and again, I mentioned, of course, writing for, I don't, after doing this work now for 20 years, and as someone who reads pretty much everything, and listen to pretty much everything, I can understand artists who feel confined by genres and labels and categories and all of that. Because I have had conversations with authors, and they tell me they write romantic suspense, and I'm like, romantic suspense? That's not what I got from your book. I bring that up to say, with Men of the House, how did you decide how it was going to be categorized? Or is that difficult for you to decide the audience you want for a certain book?
No, not really. Oh, actually, let me just hold it up for folks.
Okay, love it.
Please.
I have it highlighted on the Amazon Live site as well for our audience there to be able to see.
Well, it actually made perfect sense that Little Brother Man would tell his side of this Pookie and Little Bit story. He's had a front row seat for their relationship. He's actually lived in the home with them. So he quite frankly has all the tea. And I've actually been really encouraged by the response from folks, because I didn't I didn't plan on writing a young adult novel, and
Mhm.
especially having it be a part of a series.
Right.
But it was only natural that that happened, given a little brother man's position and space in the story, um, and how he's oftentimes acted like a kind of like a lifesaver
Mhm.
in certain situations when it comes to Mitchell and Raheem. Um, and his journey has really provided the kind of blueprint that I've been told, thank God,
Yeah.
um, from junior high and high school students who are, for the most part, heterosexual, but want to be allies, want
Mhm.
to be advocates, not only for their peers but for their parents, their guardians, their adult relatives who are LGBTQ plus.
Right.
So yeah, the novel was a lot of fun to write. It's a lot of fun to read. He has some really interesting insights, not only when it comes to same gender loving people, but his own life, his own sexuality too, in terms of whether or not, because he's a virgin, and he doesn't plan on having sex until he's married, which
Mhm.
is an interesting concept for a 15-year-old to have in New York City,
Mhm. Yeah.
who's a heterosexual teen. But he has a 19-year-old girlfriend. So the temptation, of course, is there.
Right.
Um, and he has kind of, I guess you could call them the Gene and BD, uh, his own Gene and BD in terms of his besties, Sid and Roe,
Mhm.
um, who also attend Brooklyn Tech High School with him. So, and their camaraderie and their brotherhood is just, I just, I mean, at certain points, I was kind of like in tears because I'm like, wow, I wish I had friends like this when I was in high school.
Wow. Wow. You
So,
you said something interesting, James, in writing it, being able to allow him to have this story. Did it allow you to see the characters in a different way that you've created by seeing it from his perspective?
yeah, I think it peeled back some more layers
Mhm.
to Mitchell and Raheem, both individually and collectively as a couple, that I would not have known about if Errol hadn't told this story.
Mm.
Because there are just certain things that he would know that no one else would
Right.
growing up in the house with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
It's interesting after B Boy Blues, here on the Amazon Live side, we look at the amount of ratings and reviews. Men of the House is your second most reviewed book.
Yeah.
you know, and so that says a lot. That says a lot that people wanted to be able to share their thoughts about the book, but also about being able to see the story from a different perspective as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about, of course, the anniversary for the play. We talked about, of course, being nominated for awards with the movie that's available here on Amazon for our audience to watch. We talked about, of course, what you've been able to do with Men of the House. So what do you see next for yourself and for these characters, James?
Well, like many who have seen the film, I'm anxiously anticipating the sequel
Okay.
because naturally we left it off with a big question mark.
Mm.
And not just in terms of what happens with Mitchell and Raheem. So, yeah. And the sequel is definitely, I have my eyes on that particular prize at this
Okay.
moment.
So are you telling us there's going to be a sequel?
Well, yeah, there's going to be a sequel. I don't know
Okay. Okay.
who's going to,
Okay.
I don't know how
Okay.
it's going to come to fruition, but
Okay.
yeah, it's going to happen.
Okay. Well, look, I think people
Singing it
have
and
learned.
praising it.
I think
So,
people have learned, James. If you say it, it's going to happen. I mean, we look at this journey again that we've been outlining here today, and again, it goes back to two words about you that I think are so deserving of you. For one, your consistency, but also your passion. And when you said in this conversation that writing was like breathing, I think that tells people everything they need to know about your dedication to the craft and to telling stories that people can relate to and see themselves in. So definitely we commend you for that. Again, everyone, James Earl Hardy has been our guest. Make sure you guys do all the books we've been talking about are here on Amazon. I made a point before we went live here on the Amazon. I told James there was a book we had talked about after his first visit that was not listed, but we actually do have it now there. So make sure you guys do go ahead and get B-Boy Blues. Also, of course, you can get the movie here, the other books, including Men of the House. I'll go ahead and highlight it for you guys on the Amazon Live side so you guys can see it featured there. There it is. You can go ahead and get that too. Remember, it is National Reading Month, so this is the perfect time to add some new books to your reading list. And James, how can our audience stay connected with you, man?
Okay, and also the at least the first 4 books are available on audiobook on Amazon, and all the books are available on ebook.
Yeah.
So, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram, I'm james.e.hardy.9, and on Twitter, my full name James Earl Hardy, and B-Boy Blues the film has both a Facebook and a Instagram home, B-Boy Blues the film, and B-Boy Blues and B-Boy Blues the play both have Facebook pages. So and you will be one of the first to know what's jumping off next with Pookie and Little Bit.
All right. And we'll make sure we've already tagged you, James, on Twitter there. So for those watching there, you guys will see him tagged up here. So make sure you guys take him. And we've already tagged him on Facebook too. So you guys can see him there too. So make sure you guys do follow James there. James, another great conversation with you. Really enjoyed this and looking forward to our next chat together.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
Hey, more than welcome. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. Until next time, I'm Cyrus Webb saying thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.